I'm Alicia Copenhaver from Benton REA in Prosser, Washington. Welcome to Along Those Lines.
NRECA's Along Those Lines podcast is supported by Milwaukee Tool. It is Milwaukee's goal to provide reliable, trade-focused solutions for utility professionals, increasing confidence and productivity on the job. Learn more at www.milwaukeetool.com/NRECA 2021.
Hi, everyone. This is a podcast about electric cooperatives, the work they do, and the challenges they face. I'm your host, Scott Hoffman. America's electric cooperatives are facing widespread workforce challenges due to an ongoing wave of retirements and rapid changes in the industry's key technologies. Meanwhile, many military veterans rotating out of active duty and into civilian life bring training and expertise that is often ideally suited to co-op's needs. This month, we talked to 3 veterans who served their country and now focus their skills on their communities as electric cooperative employees. Later, we'll hear from Desiree Dunham, who manages NRECA's Vets Power Us program, which helps veterans explore co-op career opportunities and offers co-ops resources to help them recruit and support veteran employees. First, I want to turn to Joseph Chaney. He's a cybersecurity analyst with Powder River Energy Corporation in Wyoming and a former Air Force commander. Joseph, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time. So you spent 20 years in the Air Force, and that's a long time. Tell us how you came to your position at Powder River.
So I was getting to the point of retiring out of the Air Force, and my wife and I had discussed, where do we want to go when we grow up, right? And we were stationed down in Cheyenne at F.E. Warren Air Force Base, and we decided, we really liked Wyoming, and we didn't want to leave. And we had found Sheridan, loved the community, loved the people, the mountains, everything about it was great. And so we had decided to buy property up here. And she had her job there with the State Department that she was working remote. So I just started shopping around looking for positions. I figured I was going to have to stay in the defense world, given that was my background for 20 years. And just happened to be looking through, I think it was on Indeed, and saw a cybersecurity job open here. So I went ahead and was like, I'd rather work with a local company as opposed to working that remote life. And it was something different too. I mean, having worked in the defense industry for 20 years, it was like, I know this, I understand this, I'm good at this, but it'd be fun to try something different. And so I went ahead and applied for the job and met with everybody here, and it just clicked, and it worked out really, really well.
Okay, now Elena Hobbs, after serving in the Navy, you came back home to where you grew up in Texas and took a job as a billing specialist at Sam Houston Electric. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up there.
After high school, I went straight into the United States Navy, and I was in the Navy for 11 years as a storekeeper, which is now known as a logistics specialist. And when I got out of the military, I came back home to Livingston and started off with working for a propane service. So that kind of gave me my customer service experience with the public and civilian world. And after that, I worked for a district attorney's office and then came here at Sam Houston Electric.
That's great. Our third guest is Brad Rockwell. He's COO at Kauai Island Utility Cooperative. Brad, after serving in the Navy, you ended up out in Kauai working for the power plant before it even became a cooperative. Tell us a little bit about that.
I was working at a power plant here on the island of Kauai. Moved here in 2001 and had been working at the plant for about 2 years when the co-op was being formed. And one of the first major actions that the co-op pursued was purchasing this power plant. So myself and the rest of the crew at the power plant became co-op employees. So my path to Kauai is a little more lengthy. It involved, my time in the Navy, obviously, and getting out and working in the power generation field. I'd sort of had a lot of experience around power plants and with major equipment providers like Solar Turbines, which is a division of Caterpillar, and also General Electric. And part of my time at General Electric led me to do some work on Kauai in the summer of 2000. I spent about 3 months here helping to overhaul one of the large generators on Kauai, and that's where I got to meet some of the folks that were working here in the utility business. Then it was Kauai Electric. It was the investor-owned utility, but a lot of those folks remained on with the co-op, and having those connections, I think, helped lead me back here to Kauai for good. And then the acquisition happened and the co-op formed, and the rest is history.
And you mentioned just now that you had experience with power generation in the Navy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I was what's called a surface warfare officer in the Navy. So I was, just a regular old shipboard officer. I served on 2 different destroyers over my 5 years of active duty. The first was home ported in Long Beach, close to where I grew up, Long Beach, California. And then the second one was in San Diego, California. I did an overseas deployment on each of those ships. So a lot of underway time, a lot of time away from our home port, training and then deployment. The first ship, my main function was in the engineering department of the ship. So I was in charge of the engine rooms and the generators, so the propulsion systems and the generators, basically keeping the ship powered and keeping it moving through the water. And then my second ship, I was responsible for the radars and the weapons system. And of course, as officers on the ship, you have to get qualified in all aspects. So I spent a lot of time up on the bridge, as officer of the deck, helping to navigate the ship and things like that. So it was a great experience, both, learning things, getting qualified, and also leading some sailors and the technical aspects of the ship.
Joseph, let me bring you back in here. So how has your training in cybersecurity in the military helped you with your work at the co-op?
So it was pretty similar. So I've been in the Air Force since I graduated college. So it was 20 years of that. And I was a cyber operations officer. So in that role, I pretty much worked the gambit of everything. So, cybersecurity, infrastructure, SATCOM radios, a little bit of everything from a management perspective. And that was one of the big things too, was I kind of wanted to get back up a little bit out of the management role and actually get my hands dirty again. So the big thing that transferred was that, understanding of cybersecurity. In the Air Force, we defended people. We took care of people, and similar role in this position was, instead of protecting the nation's interests, I was here to assist the local community, if you will, by protecting the local power cooperative to ensure that there was no cybersecurity incidences that could potentially affect our ability to provide the electrical power that we do on a daily basis.
That's a great point. Elena, let me bring you back in here. What was your main role when you were in the Navy?
As in the Navy, whenever I was in my lower ranks, we were mostly inventory specialists. You made sure all of the storerooms were stocked properly with the correct amount of items based on the history of usage. So you would also need to be accountable for each and every single part, and you would have inspections quite frequently and be graded on those things. Now, once I moved up in rank, I started to be a financial analyst, and that would allow me to look at all the different departments and basically keep a running checkbook of each of their accounts and see what they're spending the most of their money on and categorize those different outgoing funds.
Okay, I want to keep going on that point, Elena, but let's pause here for a quick word from our sponsor.
Along those lines is made possible by Milwaukee Tool, who wants you to know that their M18 Force Logic 6T linear utility crimper is the fastest, most versatile way to crimp. The inline design features a slim grip and enlarged trigger, specifically designed for use with Class 3 gloves. This optimized grip delivers best-in-class balance and pairs with the tool's 340-degree rotating head for the easiest setup. Learn more at www.milwaukeetool.com/NRECA 2021.
I'm Jay Buckles, host of Inside the Grid podcast from Sioux Valley Energy in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You're listening to Along Those Lines.
Welcome back. Elena, you were just describing the work you did while you were in the Navy. What about the culture? Do you see similarities in that regard between the military and co-ops?
I think the diversified group of people, we literally come from all walks of life. And in the military, it's not really where you came from or where you grew up. It's more about the uniform. And here at the co-op, it's more about how well you serve the members. And most of us are also members of the co-op, so we have to treat it like how would we want to be treated. And when you're in the military, you are serving your country. So you kind of have to look at it that way with the co-op, that you're out there to serve the members. You want to go above and beyond to provide the best service possible.
Joseph, for fellow veterans who might be curious about electric utilities, what opportunities do you think co-ops have to offer them?
the co-op world is a lot like the military. In the military, we're big about community. We're big about taking care of each other. There's that bigger thing when you join the military. It isn't about you. It's about protecting the nation. And in many regards, the co-op world is just like that. You're here to take care of a community. And the community mindedness of the co-op world is very similar to how we approach things in the military, too. I mean, whenever you be reassigned to a new base, you're highly encouraged to get out into the community, help the community, and educate the community on who you are and what you do in the military, and that you're there for them. And the co-op is just like that. So I talked to, my peers who had retired before me, and some of the biggest complaints they always had was, yeah, I took this great job. It paid me off some money, but, I was a cog in the wheel. I was missing that spirit that we had, that camaraderie that we had in the military. And quite honestly, when I took this position, I've gotten that. It's been great. From the get-go, it's been a family, and everybody's here to take care of everybody, as well as taking care of the community at large.
And what about you, Brad?
Well, I think first and foremost, co-ops are almost everywhere. So a lot of folks that get out of the military are, there's military concentration centers. For example, in the Navy, when you're coming out of the Navy, you're probably in San Diego or the Pacific Northwest or Virginia or Florida. I mean, those are fleet concentrations. There's some in Hawaii and some overseas as well. So somebody wants to get back home to the Midwest where they grew up or something. Co-ops were all over the place, and they're looking for technical skills that I think a lot of folks in the military have that technical skills, or at least the ability to learn them quickly. They're looking for the ability to work with people, which we certainly have, and that leadership aspect is key. I think the ability to work hard under difficult circumstances, when you talk about co-ops, being out there in tough weather and recovering after storms, that's what the military does all the time. So there's a lot of skills that translate to the electric co-op industry.
Awesome. And Brad, you served as active Navy for 5 years, and then you continued to serve in the reserves while you worked at KIUC. What was that like?
My co-op was very supportive of me continuing to serve in the Navy Reserve, and so I only had those 5 years active, but I had another 23 in the reserves and just retired earlier this year as a captain. One of those years I spent in the reserves, I was deployed to Iraq, and the co-op was amazing in their support while I was gone and helping to look after my family and, things like that. And of course, helping me to reintegrate when I came back from that year overseas and sort of picking up where I left off with my career. So really appreciative of that support. I think that's something that probably isn't just unique to Kauai Island Utility Cooperative, but exists throughout the co-op network.
That's great. Brad, Alina, Joseph, thanks so much for coming on today and sharing those experiences. Next, we're going to talk to Desiree Dunham. She's the Workforce Programs Manager here at NRECA, and she oversees our Vets Power Us initiative. Desiree, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we talked to 3 veterans earlier who gave us their insights about sort of how natural the transition is from active duty military to electric co-op work. Can you tell us a little bit about what Vets Power Us is? What is it? How long has it been around? And what are its goals?
So in 2016, we started with a veteran initiative, Serve Our Co-op, Serve Our Country. We rebranded in 2020 to Vets Power Us to better align with some other projects and with our social media campaign. So in 2020, we rebranded and created new resources, new logo, and other material to really continue to highlight our commitment to hiring veterans. So while the name changed and sort of the approach from coalition-based, which the other one was, to just more of making a commitment, the goals still remain the same. So it's really about building the awareness. So making veterans, active military, and their spouses aware of our career opportunities. And then the second piece is to develop resources to help co-ops with attracting, hiring, and honoring veterans.
And you just mentioned that you ask co-ops to make a commitment when they join this program. What exactly is the commitment?
It's really about committing to reaching out, seeking veterans, and looking to employ and honor and retain them. So it's a very quick and simple process. It's really just going out to cooperative.com. You click on the button that says Make the Commitment. You fill out your name, email, and phone number. And then once you submit that, we'll send you some resources to help you promote that you're a part of this commitment, that you made the commitment, and that you are with the Vets Power Us community. As we know, a lot of cooperatives are already working with hiring and really doing a lot to support veterans. We just want that next piece, which is make the commitment so that we can just highlight how many cooperatives and that we do work together to develop this pipeline of talent.
So how does Vets Power Us seek out veterans for employment, and what sort of resources do you provide them? And then I want to talk about it from the co-op side after that.
So that's a really great question. That's really the focus right now, is really to develop partnerships with organizations that work with veterans. That really gets to that awareness piece so that they know who we are, where we are, and what we offer. Sometimes that part is missing. Even though over 40% of veterans come from rural areas and they may want to return home, we want to make sure they know that if they return home, we have a lot of different career opportunities. So one thing is to develop those partnerships. Another piece is we have Troops to Energy on our website. It's an initiative, and we have a link there. They provide a roadmap to energy career, so they have information that veterans can use to help them as far as if they're seeking to get into an energy career. They also have a military skills translator, which can be useful for the military personnel, but also for cooperatives, helping to understand how those skills may translate into a role. So those are some resources that are available to them, along with videos that we produce. And those videos, they highlight different co-op employees that are from different military branches, and it shows the different careers just so they can begin to see how they may be able to fit into the co-op culture and see how someone from the military was able to transition and, take the skills they learned in the military and transition to a civilian career at a co-op.
And so you're working on the potential hire side, but you're also working with co-ops to get them set up to not only be attractive to potential candidates who are coming out of the military, but how to support them once they're there and their families as well. Tell us a little more about that.
Some of the resources we provide, one is just like we started with, make the commitment. So internally, realize that you have some vacancies, you have some needs, and how military personnel can help you fulfill those. So make the commitment. Then we have a Getting Started guide. That's one of the first resources we created, and that has some steps, some areas that you can connect with, where you can post jobs. So some of the foundational information that you can use as you're getting started and trying to connect with veterans. We also have a veteran-facing info sheet, and it talks about some of the similarities between the military and the co-op, also the different type of career opportunities. So this is a resource that you can take and, hand out, provide in your community, or if you're going to veteran events. And then one of the more recent things that we're about to produce is veteran recruiting tips. So it's going to focus on interviewing and job posting. So it'll have some helpful tips that the co-ops can use.
And I sort of suspect that our listeners, when they think of electric utility work, they think of line workers, they think of sort of outdoor operations work. And a lot of veterans, I'm sure, do have backgrounds in training that would make them good at those jobs. But what we heard from our other veteran guests is that there's a wide range of co-op career paths that are suited to military veterans. Can you talk a little about some of those roles and how you sort of position the co-ops in front of veterans to bring in as many as you can?
Yeah, I think, like you said, from the 3 people that were recently interviewed, we begin to see the variety of careers, just that veterans can bring into the co-op, from, those leadership roles, CFOs, CEOs, to engineering, to data analysis, to equipment operators, to some of the more, office support roles where you have communications and public relations. You have accounting, your member services. There's just such a wide range that I think really understanding those skills can really help. While they might not have done the exact same thing in the military, but once you understand the skills, you can begin to see how they can fit into the co-op. So I think that military skills translator will be a big benefit, like I said, for the veteran employee, but also for the cooperatives, so they can begin to look past the job titles and really understand the skills and then see where they can fit in at a cooperative, because we have so many different opportunities, which it's exciting because, it's not just one thing. There's a wide range of things. Because sometimes what I've heard from some of the military, they might not want to do the exact same thing, but they have a lot of different skills that they can apply into another role at a co-op.
That's such a great point. And how is the program doing? Are you able to kind of quantify if it's hitting the mark in bringing veterans in?
I can say that it's doing well from the branding perspective. So we have an annual #VetsPowerUs campaign. So we definitely see a lot of co-ops posting using that and honoring their veterans. We see a lot of local news stories. Over this past year, there was a nice uptick in the number of stories highlighting Vets Power Us. So we can say from that perspective that it's doing well. We still want to get the word out because, as I mentioned, we know that a lot of co-ops are already working with and hiring veterans, but we want more to make the commitment so that we can then begin to see how has our veteran hiring, has there been an increase. We don't have numbers to show how many we've been able to hire through the program, but, it's about really getting the word out. It's a really quick process to make the commitment because we want to show that united, committed front that we are wanting to serve the veteran population.
It's such a great program, Desiree. Thanks so much for coming on and telling us about it.
Thank you.
And thanks to you, our listeners, and to our sponsor, Milwaukee Tool. For more on this and other podcasts, visit us on electric.coop. Until next time, for Along Those Lines, I'm Scott Hoffman.
I'm Kelsey Castanis, Engineering Manager at Tri-County Electric Co-op in Aledo, Texas. Thanks for listening to Along Those Lines. Subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcast app.